Hi, everyone. We'll start in a couple of seconds after we let people join. All righty. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our artist talk with Heeseop Yoon. My name is Sarah Blagden, and I'm with Dallas Art Fair. We are pleased to present the exhibition Cultural Ecologies of Asia in collaboration with Sapar Contemporary and curator Jacqueline Chao. It is on view in person at Dallas Art Fair projects through next weekend, March 6th. And the work of Heeseop Yoon is included in the show. So we are honored to have Heeseop here with us today on Zoom and in conversation with Dr. Nina Levent. Dr. Levent is an art historian, a museum expert, and the founding director of Sapar Contemporary Gallery and Incubator. Her curatorial and research interests include multisensory art, figurative representations in Western and Eastern cultures, as well as cross-disciplinary research on creativity and perception and cultural inclusion in contemporary art. She is deeply interested in the rich sensory heritage of Central Asia and Caucasus, a focus of Sapar Contemporary Incubator. Heeseop Yoon was born and raised in Seoul, Korea. She holds her BFA from Chung-ang University, Seoul, Korea, and MFA from City College of New York. She has exhibited in museums and art centers internationally, including MASS MoCA, John Michael Kohler Arts Center, Wisconsin, the Bronx Museum, New York, Seoul Arts Center, Korea, China Association for Science and Technology, Australia, and Media Arts Center, Beijing. She's also participated in several residencies such as the Lower East Side Printshop, Walsh Sharpe Art Foundation, Skowhegan School of Painting and Artists Alliance, Inc. in New York, as well as Schöppingen, Germany. She recently finished her first public mural installation in Italian Market in Philadelphia. Heeseop currently lives and works in Brooklyn, New York, and is known for her large-scaled line drawing installations and very intricate black and white drawings that deal with memory and perception within cluttered spaces. If you have any questions during the talk, please type them in the Q&A in the toolbar at any point, and Heeseop and Nina will try to get to them at the end. So yeah, please write them in the Q&A rather than the chat, so all of the questions are in one place. So with that, I am very honored to hand it over to Heeseop and Nina.
So I should start first?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay.
Begin and then we'll.
Right. Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me here today and giving me an opportunity to introduce my work and also talk about my work. For past many years, I have been focusing on site-specific tape drawing installation series along with a couple of other drawing-based projects. So I am going to start talking about my installation projects first and talk a little bit about my general work process and how I begin. So when I have a project, the first thing I normally do is visiting the site and take photographs of the space. And while I'm in the space, I try to choose the areas with architectural characters, such as the walls with interesting shapes and heights, layers, or structures. And once I choose the area for my project, and I make rough sketches that shows how the entire piece will fit in the space. I don't normally make detailed sketches of the context of the drawing that will be in the installation. And most of the drawing decisions are made in the process of making the actual drawing in my studio. So I'm going to show you a couple of sketches that I made for this project at Oz Art Center in Nashville. So this space was already normally for performing art, But for this project, they built this slightly curved wall that's marked in green on the screen. And that's the size. The size of the wall was about 18 foot height and 80 foot long. And this is the sketch that I made for the before I start the drawing. And the drawings you see here is not the actual drawing for the for this particular project. I just photoshopped one of my old previous installations to show how the entire piece will be placed in the space.
Heeseop, can I chime in for just a second?
Sure.
Because many of the people who dialed in are familiar with your drawings, such as the one behind me. We've shown them in Dallas before, but not with your large wall works.
Right.
And they do look deceptively as if they're charcoal drawings. And I think we need to address the issue. We call them drawings. They are really not drawings, although they look to even in good documentations, they do look deceptively as if they're made with charcoal or some sort of actual pencil.
Okay.
So I think if you could speak a little bit about the line making here, that would be amazing.
So most of my drawings are made with like 1/4 of an inch black masking tape. And I was actually going to talk about my material a little later, but so like maybe I can talk a little bit about choice of my drawing materials first. So my entire, okay, let me go back to like examples of my installation.
Yeah, that's an amazing.
Like I make drawings for the installation with mostly 1/4 of an inch blank masking tape, and my entire body of work started with the idea of making drawings with the materials that are challenging to draw with, because my earlier art education in Korea was very much focused on learning draftsmanship through repetitive practice. And at a certain point, the act of drawing became almost like very tedious. So it had gotten to a point that making a line with traditional drawing materials was almost an unconscious action. It happened so fast and easy that I was not really thinking about the process of actual like mark making. So I wanted to find a way that I can slow down the process of seeing and drawing, and making a drawing with non-traditional materials like masking tape limits some of the freedom and slows the process of a whole like mark making. And when I started to draw with black masking tape, I started to make the drawing directly on the wall with black masking tape. But it took, I mean, most of my installations are big and it's getting like bigger and bigger. And I don't know, it just took too long time to just install the piece like on site. And then it was really painful to just destroy everything like once the show is over. So I wanted to find a way I can like still work with masking tape and like shorten the installation time, and also be able find a way that I can save some of the work after the show is done. So I explore with a bunch of different materials for the like background of the tape drawing, and the Mylar worked very well for that purpose. And I use I use many sheets of mylar to make the drawings for the installation. And I always recycle my works for my next projects unless they're sold or installed permanently at some point at a certain place.
Yeah, I wanted to say it's sometimes it's like there is such a tension when you work with tape.
Mhm.
And I was glad that you addressed the issue that it's a challenging material, because I think that this tension that's like a signature of your marks making is because you wrestle with a tape.
Right.
All of the straight lines are extra straight, but then when it comes to anything that's curved, there is this process. I don't know if you tear or you bend. Sometimes I see both, but there
Right.
is a process of it's clearly that you wrestle. There is a kind of tension in the application of tape, and sometimes you leave those extra lines that look like sketch lines
Right.
on. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit with just basically um, eh, what tape is like as a material for drawing.
Well, like I just said, I started to draw with masking tape because it was challenging to draw with and it was hard to control. So I could um, pay more attention to the actual process of making individual lines rather than focusing on making a drawing of an object that looks like real object. And because it is very hard to control. Like there are a lot of mistakes that I make in the process of making the drawing, and I like I was so like I mentioned earlier, my because of my earlier education, um, like if I thought that I was not able to make any mistake and like to reach that like formal perfection. And but the more I like make drawings, like I like think started to think that it's not a mistake that I make. It's like every single mark is the way I see certain things at that particular moment. So I wanted to leave every mark that I make on the surface, like in the making process of making my own drawing. So once I put the line in, like in both of my large installation and small drawing collages, once I make the line on the surface, I don't erase or remove the lines. And if I want to like make if I want to change the drawings or make corrections, I just add more lines on top of existing lines. So there are many layers of lines and many layers of like mylar. So you can see every single steps, like every single marks that I made in the like while I made that particular drawing. And I don't think it's a mistake, and it's just like shows the accumulation of time and how my perception has changed like while I spent time making that particular drawing.
Thank you.
And so should I go back to,
I think so, to the Oz edge.
okay, so this was the sketch for the project, and this is the final installation at the Art Center. And this is a little closer view of the drawing. And so I always make drawings from the photographs I take. Um, I begin by taking photographs of interiors such as warehouses, basement or junkyard, or antique store, like places where everything is jumbled and disorganized and filled with piles of random stuff. And these are some of the examples of my resource photographs. And from these photographs, I construct a view and start to draw freehand. So I almost never make any sketches or project images to make drawing. And like I mentioned earlier, I just add more lines on top of the lines that I already put if I want to make any corrections. So I don't know, if you can see here, you like some parts you can see many layers of lines and like multiple lines or like a couple of layers of mylar. So you have kind of this ghost image.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we see that. We also see that the point of view changes, right? The perspective changes constantly. Sometimes we look at an object from above, and sometimes from the side or from below.
Right. That's because my also like I usually make collages of my resource photos, and then like sometimes I change the photos of some areas. So I make, let's say I finish the drawing of one part and then like work on other parts and go back to the previous part, and then the photograph looks different. And like I just add more drawings on top. So that's why it has multiple perceptions and like point of views. These are some of other. So in my drawings, I manipulate the subject of clutter into a format for aesthetic layering. I am interested in representing these kind of claustrophobic environment and defunct object in them. And at the beginning, it started as more of a formal interest. I was just very fascinated by these massive piles of like stuff and anonymous, decontextualized quality they had. But the more I work with this kind of claustrophobic environment, I started to realize that these are kind of spaces that's hidden within our lives, and we have so many things that we forget about or we want to forget about, and we always struggle for space for ourselves and space for things we own. So now I'm more interested in these as lost space, which makes my work also about like exploration in decay or ownership.
Mm. Talk a little bit about how you think about them, how you know the how you go from still life into what feels like an immersive landscape.
I'm sorry, I don't. What can you?
So the question is, do you think of this work? Does it start as a still life? It's also the scale of it is not quite the scale of still life,
Right.
and it changes throughout the work.
Well, it's. I mean, I still somewhat think that it could be still life because it's just like different scale. But I mean, it definitely looks like the map of this massive like things, and like a lot of people when they see the piece my installation first, almost everybody thinks that it's like cityscape or landscape, or like map of some places, and I mean it could be, but I don't I think it's still like for me, like when I work, I like always work like little section by section.
Mhm.
So for me, it's still like, from the point of view, like working on the actual drawing, I'm still making a still life drawing. But when I put them all together, it's a map of something that we like used to own, or we like a map of things that we like try to forget, or like something that we wants to forget, but it's still with us. Like, so we are surrounded by that. So in a way that I want to like bring this new like spotlight to the things that that's hidden within our life.
Yeah, we're haunted by objects we really want to discard.
Right. So you get very like intimidated by these massive piles of things that even like you don't even know what they are at first. But the more you spend time in front of the drawing and try to figure out what's in front of you, and you slowly start to realize that these are all things that are somewhat familiar to you. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
It is.
so and and I could also, okay, so now I could also talk a little bit about my actual drawing process and installation process. I'm going to show you a time lapse of my drawing process in the studio. And this drawing was for this project at Des Moines Arts Center in Iowa. And like I said earlier, my drawings are made with 1/4" blank masking tape on many sheets of 2 feet by 4 feet Mylar sheet. And like I make majority of the drawing in my studio and finish the rest of the drawing on site by adding additional drawings on the wall, floor, ceilings, or columns. And like most of my installations are room scale, and as you can see here, my studios are like a lot smaller than most of the exhibition space. So I work little section by section in my studio, and don't usually get to see entire piece until finish installing it on site. Um,
This is actually mind blowing.
yeah, it took me about, I don't know, 2 months to make this drawing in the studio. Let's go back to an image. And this is the final installation of the drawing that I made in the time lapse that I just showed you.
How long did it take you to install?
To install, it took me about 3 days.
That's what I remember.
Yeah, and because I had to make additional drawings on the wall at the top part, because I could not really prepare for that. Because like I always try to add more drawings on like columns, or like the like architectural characteristic structures they have when I'm installing the piece. So it took me about 3 days to finish the whole installation on site.
How do you attach Milo to that wall?
Oh, okay. I was about to So the whole piece is attached to the wall with the same kind of black masking tape that I used for the drawing. I just used little thicker tapes. And this is another piece, another installation piece at Sapar Contemporary in New York. And
that's a different one. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And once I'm finished, once I finish the drawing in my studio, I give each miler a number and make a map of the drawing that shows which number goes to where. So installing the whole piece is just like putting together a really big puzzle. So these are some other examples of my installation. And this project is called Open Source, and Open Source was a citywide public art exhibition in Philadelphia. And the area for this project for me, it was in the middle of the building in Italian market area. So I walked around all the markets in Italian like market and took some photographs of like stuff or objects in the stores or in the neighborhood, and then made a drawing from those photographs. And this was my first outdoor mural. And because it had to be installed outside, I had to use aluminum panels as a drawing surface instead of mylar. And also, once I was finished with the drawing, I had to put many layers of like like weatherproof mediums on top of the tape drawing.
Okay.
And this is some close shot.
So it was white coated aluminum?
Yes, it was white coated aluminum, and I used about let's say it was like 4 foot by 4 foot by 8 foot panels, and I used about like 16 or 17 panels for the piece. Yeah. So, and this is my another project so I have another series of small works where I make collages using very detail oriented pen drawings. And I really like playing. I really like to play with scale in my work because shifting scale means shifting point of view, and scale always connects to the physicality of the work and how the viewer relates to it. And although my small like drawing collages and large installations are very different in scale, and they're very different. They also have very different line qualities. But I feel like in the end, they work in a similar way, that they both make the act of seeing more active. Because in my large installation, you can see the details of the line, or you can see the materials of the drawing and layers of mylar when you're close to the piece. But when you are so close to the work, the drawing itself looks just like a bunch of abstract lines. And in order for you to somewhat figure out what you're looking at and what's depicted in the drawing, you have to kind of step back and see the piece from the distance. But in my smaller work, like collage drawings like this, when you see the piece from the distance, it looks like abstract form. And in order for you to see the details of the drawing, you have to like step close to the piece. So people have a completely different like spatial relationship between um, people have a completely different spatial relationship to the small work than the large installation, but they both make you move, walk around, and like kind of investigate about what's in front of you. And I think this kind of discovering process is very important to me in a way that it makes the act of seeing more about experience of the whole environment you are in with the work.
Yeah, I want to add that truly one of the experiences of being inside your installation is that your sort of the perceptual part of your brain, your visual cortex is so engaged in trying in assembling the collage, because sometimes when you collage, they're actually not, the lines don't quite meet.
Right.
You're letting them, they would be a few inches apart. But when you step back and you look at the whole, your mind's eye glues it as a one holistic environment. Uh, and but then when you come closer, you actually understand that the viewer does a lot of the collaging in their mind's eye. That physically the lines don't quite meet. They meet just enough to force our eyes, as you just said, into the actively viewing. It is actually amazing as for how much your brain and your eyes are engaged in the process of sort of consuming your work visually. And it's also an interesting, having seen a lot of your installations, they make me feel a little seasick because of the different perspectives. Because there's something there where you are surrounded by an environment, but it's not an environment as you're used to it, where you have one perspective and one point of view. You're looking at these multiple objects that you're recognizing, but you're looking at them with a constantly shifting perspective.
Right.
And I think it's an amazing position that you carved out for a viewer, in which there is no option as to be passive in the environment that you offer them.
Right. I mean, that's why I try to leave every single mark that I make in the process of making the drawing in my studio, that in a way that it's like you said, you don't have an option not to see all the mistakes that I make. And like you just have to like witness every single mark and how my vision or like perception changed during the whole process. And it's like it is like actually moving. It looks like it's moving, and it's the
Yes.
line itself is made very carefully because I make drawings with tape, and it's very, in a way, it's very slow process. But the like finished line or like the lines in my installation piece, it looks very gestural or expressive, and it seemed like it happened really fast, and it almost feels very aggressive.
Yes, there is this dynamism. There is an almost of like a really powerful energy to the application of the tape.
Yes, so I think I like that kind of the irony is that the process was so slow and like careful and like repetition of a lot of lines and mistakes and accumulation of times, and what you see is like, and it's so different what you feel from like what I feel like when I'm making the drawing myself. um, and also about the like you kind of connect the lines like when you see the piece, is that when I'm also making the drawing, I'm not really paying attention to, like, I work from the photographs. I know what I'm drawing because like it's the like photographs of things that, like objects that I'm familiar with, but I try not to pay too much attention to individual objects to draw. And like I try to pay more attention to like very detailed, like very like close up lines of individual like objects. So when I'm making a drawing, it's not, I don't, it doesn't feel like I'm making a drawing of whole like one object. It's more like drawing for me is more like connect like a network of lines.
Yeah.
So I just connect its lines what I see in like very small area, and then like in the end it looks like something that you know already. But the process I try to remove like my preconceptions about that individual object as much as possible, and try to only concentrate on like outlines or like details of lines as much as possible. And that's why I don't really pay attention to make like perfectly rendered objects in my drawing. So it looks like something like people always like mention that after like they see my word drawings and, oh, you can draw so well. And I'm like, no, I can't, because nothing is right in the drawing. It's like everything is tilted and it's not in right position, and perspective is so wrong, and like there's a lot of mistake. And so you know it depends, like I think things are like it is a mistake, or it's not, it's an imperfect drawing. But when it's like when I'm done with the drawing and put it together, like it's not the details you pay attention to anymore. It's just like people pay more attention to what's happening in front of their eyes visually, instead of like individual object is looking same as the real object in life.
Yeah. No, I think the viewer is very, very engaged when in front of your work.
And like I had a like when I was in high school, you know, I had to go to this like private art school to like learn how to draw and to test uh, to get test for the entrance exam for arts like college. And then like they make you like draw a lot of still lifes there, and like it was very much focused on like drawing exact like like drawing object realistically as much as possible. And like there's one day that my like teacher there like called me, and she's like, you may want to go check in like see eye doctor, because like I try to draw straight lines, but it's never straight. It's like it looks straight for me, but they said, oh, it's always a little bit tilted, right way or left way. It's always a little bit tilted. And I was like, it looks totally straight for me. It's like, I don't know what the problem is. So I went to the doctor and like went through like different tests, and nothing was wrong. So I was like, what's wrong? Am I like seeing things like in different way than other people? Or it's like, is it wrong to draw this way? It's like, I think it's the right way, but people think it's not. So I guess that's the point that I started to question about what's right and wrong, and what's mistake and what's not in my drawing. And like my like education started from like it was all about not making a mistake. But I feel like my work right now is all about making a mistake. And like I don't think it's a mistake. I just want to show it's just a like the process of making a mark. So I guess that's why I just kept drawing and drawing over and over again. And it's my drawing, so nobody can tell it's wrong or not. I don't know.
Mm.
Okay, so this is the detail of the.
Can I ask you about the details? So you spoke a little bit about maps, and people do refer to sometimes look at your larger drawings or small drawings as maps.
Mhm.
You know, they have this a little bit of like Alice in Wonderland moment where, you know, the chair is small, but the teapot is huge. But I also was wondering if you could speak a little bit to which degrees there, you know, maybe mind maps of yours, because there are certain objects that that travel from one work into another that might have significance to you. There are certain objects that I recognize might be from Brooklyn and certain others from Seoul or other places, and how they end up then, you know, be next to each other.
Well, so like I said, I always draw from the photographs I take. So I collect my resource photographs like everywhere I go, like travel. So like I try to, whenever I travel or visit some places, I try to find these spaces with just like a lot of random stuff or like storages, junkyard. So when I go to Korea, like there's this place that I usually go there. It's this huge antique store in the middle of Seoul, and the entire building is just filled with. They call it antique store, but there's a lot of like it's almost like garbage, and they collect things there, and it's like they have everything in that building, and it's never organized, but and yet the owner of the each store, like if I need something, so do you have this and that, and they just exactly know like where that stuff is in that like chaotic pile. So like I usually take photographs there, and then also like I like when I did the residencies in like Germany, and also when I participated in the Skowhegan program in Maine, or like also when I went down to Philly and Iowa. It's like I always try to find places with a lot of like junk or things or stuff, and I collect photographs from like all over the world and different parts of the world. And when I make a drawing, I like in a way I'm creating my own chaos, that I just collage photographs from like different parts of the world and put them together, and then make drawings from that collage that I make. And I try not to give any, like I try not to put any like sentimental, like personally sentimental object in my drawing, because I didn't want my drawing to, I wanted my drawing to be more about experience of line and making a mark, rather than like narratives or representation of individual objects. But recently I started to put like a couple of, like not a lot, but like one or two objects for each drawing that's very like sentimental or so close to me in my life, like current life. For example, I mean, because it's just not possible to think my work without my current situation and things that I've been surrounded recently. So, for example, in this drawing, you can see this little
Beep.
beep there, because I have how old is she? She's like 4-year-old daughter now, and I have been surrounded with a lot of baby, materials and stuff So I don't know, I just felt like I need to put like this bead in here, like in the drawing. So it's totally random, like on this context in this drawing, but it still made sense to me. So I just add like a couple of like objects that's from my real life, I guess. So it's, my drawings are always like recreation of my own like chaos, like like using other people's chaos, I guess. And just a little more closed.
Mm.
And I think these are photographs from the Germany that I had. I had a residencies in Schöppingen a while ago, and one of my friends was studying in school there. So I went to visit their school, and they also, of course, they had like this storage with a lot of stuff. So I took photographs of it and used the photographs for this drawing.
Is there like a theme of technology or a clash of technologies? It just seems to me, in some of the drawings, there are telephones of different generations,
Mm-hmm.
from mid 20th centuries through iPhones. Then there's like vacuum cleaners, I've seen mixers, domestic appliances of, various decades. But sometimes, I've also seen like some very large electrical machinery
Yeah.
that seem to be an interest of yours, along with lots of wiring.
Right. I mean, the wiring it started from, so I think my first studio after college in Korea was at my dad owned a small factory, and it's a factory made like some like stuff that goes into like telephone. And my first studio was at his like factory basement, which he was also using it for like storages. So like one of my first drawing with masking tape was just like, I just made a drawing with masking tape of the like things in my studio, and there happened to be a lot of wires and electrical tools, and so I think like and then I think those like my work always have lots of wires and some like electrical tools, and I think that's like my influence of those objects. And like it's the history of people's life, and since I go all different places, um, I go and take photographs of stuff like from all different parts of like city, town, like and world, different countries. And there's always a place with a lot of things that had a lot of history of people's life, who's living there. And and it's like it shows like people like put those stuff to forget, and like those things are waiting until like people to use them again. And but sometimes it just never like comes out again, be used again. So I don't know, it's like history of like it's a memory of people's history, or like people like place they live and their life. So collecting all those different objects and put it all together in my work is almost like showing like our histories that we don't want to reveal, or like histories that's not meant to be exposed. Um, so like I personally really try not to put my personal history on my drawings, but inevitably I'm already like putting like way too many like my history and my stories in my drawing. So I guess no matter how much I tried, it just like happened, and you kind of have to deal with your past and like things that you have, and deal with things that you try to forget about and like don't want to remember, I guess. Um,
Um, While we are looking at it, I'll ask you a few questions because we have some questions of there were a few things we didn't address. One is, Heeseop, can I ask you about the size of your various Mylar sheets?
Mylar sheets.
Yeah.
They're for my installation. They are usually 2 feet by 4 feet.
2 by 4.
Yeah, 2 by 4.
Okay, and you never. I just wanted to reiterate because somebody was asking if you first install the work on the floor, if you lay them out on the floor before they go up on the wall, or do you go straight up on the wall?
When I'm working, or
No, when you're installing.
no, like so, like I just use the map that I made, like I showed you earlier, and then the individual the Mylar sheet goes straight up to the wall.
That's what I remember. Yeah. So Utman was asking, do you have issues with tape not adhering properly or peeling?
Like most of the tape installations, tape piece stayed pretty long because like I mean I have works that I made about like I don't know like almost 20 years ago, and still stick to it because I try to use like archival uh, tape that used archival pH neutral glue, but I don't know how long exactly it's gonna last. But like when I have to do permanent installation, I normally put uh, that like layer of matte medium or other mediums so that the tape doesn't peel off from the mylar or wall.
Mhm.
And I think that'll keep the tape pretty strongly, I guess.
Then someone is asking you, are you a minimalist in your own home?
I used to be. Now, not so anymore because of my daughter. But I used to. I used to not put anything up on my wall, like in my like home, like my house, and like I'm always very visually like overwhelmed in my studio with so many things. So I just couldn't deal with another thing on my wall when I'm home. So like just empty white wall gave me really like it made me really like calm. So I try to be minimalist, and I'm hoping that I could go back to minimalist. And like I only used to own very practical things, and I don't like buy things for like purpose of decoration or like
Mhm. Somebody is asking you if you're listening to the music when you are working, if there's a certain music you're listening to.
Yeah, I listen to like everything. I listen to podcasts, music, like but when I'm working, like I normally if I listen to music, I usually listen to very like upbeat and fast music. Yeah.
There is a vibrational energy,
Yeah.
especially to Mila works.
Yeah. And yeah, but I also like used to listen to lots of podcasts like while I'm working. So.
Mhm.
And I think this is my last image.
All right. So how do you cut them out?
Cut.
Because right now we're looking at the one that's collaged and that's a cutout.
Oh, okay. So I make the drawing and then I use Jackdo knife to cut out the negative space. And for this work, I used black paper as a background so that you could see some of the negative space, like this one.
So somebody's confirming there's a question about the installation of Mylar. So Mylar is, just to reiterate, I know you addressed it before, Mylar is installed to the wall with a tape. It's not, stapled or anything.
No, it's normally, I mean, when there is a time, there was a couple of times that I had to install the Mylars on like brick walls or concrete walls. So I had to like nail the Mylars some parts, but normally it's attached to the wall with just tape.
Okay. Thank you, Heeseop. Also, that's a very fine drawing and an incredible job cutting it out.
It's very soothing process for me. Like
The drawing or the working with an X-Acto knife?
I mean both. I mean I like working on big scale. Like I like how physically I get involved when I'm making a larger installation drawing. But also there is like it's so nice to just sit on one place, not move around and like spend like 3 days to install the piece and then just like for small work I can just sit down one place and just draw and like cut out and it's really like soothing. So I like working like those two works really suits me in like very different way. So that's why I like to work like both in scales, large and small.
So people are asking, so your small work, what are the various dimensions of the small work?
Uh,
I'm looking for the one behind me.
the size, those they
What's
the,
the
the
various
one
sizes of
okay.
small work?
The like for example, this work is about 60 inches long and like 21 inches wide.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And then this is about the same size, and these are a lot smaller, like 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 18 inches.
By 20 or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the same one behind you, right? It's about the size.
I think this is one of the biggest piece. It's like 40 by 40
Okay.
inches. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Heeseop. That was quite
Thank you for listening.
journey. And thank you everyone for your questions. I want to thank the Dallas Art Fair for hosting us here. It's lovely. I have shown your work in Dallas before a few times, and it's always such a pleasure. It's so engaging for the students, actually, for the collectors, but also students from the university come. And there will be a group today that who is coming specifically to see the work behind me and the other small works that we brought. I'm very grateful for the Dallas Art Fair that they gave us a chance to show your work now that we have not been back for almost a year and a half. So thank you, Heeseop, also for taking the time and walking us through this process. It's stunning to see it, to look at the work, but it is amazing when you actually walk us through the process of creating it.
Oh, thank you so much.
So if we don't have, I think we've answered all of our questions. If there are more, you can email them to either Sarah or myself, and we'll try to answer them. The work is here on view at the Dallas Art Fair project. That's 150 Manufacturing Street, and they're open Tuesday through Saturday. I will be here for another couple of days. If you're in Dallas, do stop by, and I'd be happy to give you a tour. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Heeseop. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, everyone.